on, guys? Welcome back to this episode of Outside the Arena with Rob and Griff. I'm Griff Patenik, joined by my co-host Rob Goldberger, and it is good to be back. Last week was really busy for both of us, so we couldn't get out the typical episode per se. But I did do an interview with NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, so if you haven't already checked that out, go ahead, go watch that video. Great interview with Rap Sheet. But with that being said, we're back this week, and we've got a lot to talk about. The NBA Finals obviously are underway. Right now, series is at 1-1. Partly the reason we ended up just waiting till today. We wanted to, be able to talk about Game 2. So series is tied at 1-1. Obviously, Golden State won last night. Game 3 is not for June 8th. So it's so many days in between. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, I guess Game 3 and Game 4, it's a little closer together, but it's just so long in between these games. It's honestly annoying, but the NBA Finals, I mean, Golden State obviously as they won their series pretty easily against Dallas in 5. The Celtics, they're coming off a Game 7 with the Miami Heat. I mean, I feel like we didn't even talk about that real quick. I mean, that series, that game was highly competitive. The Miami Heat, I mean, we got to give them credit. Yeah. I mean, they really surprised a lot of people, and I think all the credit really goes to Jimmy Butler. I mean, that man, I mean, he had some rough games in that series, but the way he played at the end of the series, I mean, just insane. I mean, this guy is truly one of the better players in the NBA. I think he really deserves, to be in the discussion for top 10, top 15 kind of guy. I mean, he's a really good player, and he showed. I mean, obviously he missed that shot at the end, but can't fault him for taking that. That's a perfect look, and I'm sure he's thought a lot about that shot and missing it, but that's just the name of the game. Sometimes 2016 NBA Finals, Steph Curry had some good looks in those final few minutes, and sometimes it just doesn't go in even for the best of them. So tough series. I don't know if you want to give quick thoughts on that before we jump to the finals.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was a much better series than I was expecting, because I thought, it was going to be Celtics after that first game that Miami took. I thought it was going to be Celtics rather quickly, to be honest, after that. But, I mean, Jimmy's greatness, man. I mean, I would even elevate him higher than top 10 just because of how much he elevates his play in the postseason. Like, I think I know Jason Tatum got that Larry Bird trophy, but I think beyond a shadow of a doubt, Jimmy was the best player in that series. And he was really the only reason they were in it. And to me, Kyle Lowry and Bam Adebayo were just not good enough. They really weren't. And look, Miami, for everyone talks about how well run they are, this, that. They've overachieved, but to me, they've done a really poor job surrounding Jimmy with what he needs. Because look, you have Kyle Lowry right now. He's going to be making $30 million next year at 37 years old. You have Duncan Robinson making $18 million a year next year. You have Bam on a max contract, which I'm not really sure he deserves. And you got Tyler Hero, who's going to be winning huge money soon. So look, I think the Miami Heat are definitely going to be either to be looking to acquire another star or move some of their pieces, because look, they've only got a few years left of Jimmy, and Jimmy is, behind, if we're not counting LeBron, of course, and the likes of Steph in their own tier, he is acclaimed the best playoff performer in the league right now. I mean, this is a guy who consistently elevates his play in the postseason. He did it with the Sixers. Even when he was looking with he was sort of checked out with the Sixers, he still elevated his play. I mean, he did it in Chicago. He does it everywhere he goes. This is a guy who elevates his play in the postseason. And to me, the guys around him just weren't good enough. I mean, he had 47 points in Game 7 and they lost. That's not good enough from the rest of the team. And I just think, look, I think Donovan Mitchell to Miami makes a little too much sense for both sides. I think you've got that, there's some reports that Donovan Mitchell wants out, and this Quinn Snyder firing is looking like his out.
Well, not firing.
Not firing. Mitchell, yeah, he left there, not firing. He departed. He didn't want to be there anymore. Really, please, Sixers, please. But no, look, I think it makes a little too much sense. Donovan wants out. Miami's going to be looking for another star, and I think they're going to try to offload maybe that Robinson contract, one of those awful contracts that they have, because they have 3 of them in my opinion. So it's not good enough surrounding Jimmy, and Jimmy is just a GOAT, man. That's all I got to say. This guy is truly going to be looked back at as one of the most underappreciated players, because he is a guy that I think, might definitely take it easy in the regular season, but when it comes playoff time, he's playing 48 minutes, dominating on both sides of the court. And, he turned into from a bad shooter into the regular season to a great shooter in the postseason.
Yeah. I mean, Jimmy Butler, I mean, this guy's playing through injury too. You got to remember him. He got hurt in, what was it, game 4, game 5, something like that.
Yeah. He was hurt during the season too.
Yeah. I mean, he's just an exceptional player. And, he's maybe not the flashiest player. You look at him in the league as, you see some of these guys, obviously, the shooting seems to be what people get attention to, the dunking, obviously. But like Jimmy Butler is as good as anyone, especially in the playoffs. I mean, he is, I agree. He was definitely the best player in the series. Historically, there's only been rare occasions where, a player who was on the losing team won the, award for best player in the series or MVP. So I'm not surprised it went to Tatum, but I agree with you that Jimmy Butler is definitely the best guy in the series. In terms of, I mean, you bring up a good point with Donovan Mitchell. I think Donovan Mitchell would be a great piece there. I'm going to be honest. I just think Donovan Mitchell is going to be a New York Knick. I think it's just written in the stars at this point. I think he's a huge New York guy. He's a huge New York Mets fan.
Yeah.
I think that's where he wants to be. I think, I really do believe that he'll demand a trade. And I think the Knicks would be fools not to give up whatever they have to get him, because you've got a superstar in the league, a rising superstar who wants to be in New York, who wants to be a Knick. And it just seems like the perfect fit. I don't know what they'd have to give up to be. I mean, you wonder if they'd have to maybe trade RJ. I feel like RJ would probably fall into the category of untouchable, though. I wonder if they would part with a guy like Randall.
Donovan Mitchell be 26 by the time the season starts. I thought he was like 23 or 24. It's always
he's a little up there.
Yeah, because he stayed all 4 years at Louisville. That's right.
Yeah, but I mean, he's still a very young superstar. That the New York, I mean, the Knicks, that's the kind of player the Knicks need at the end of the day.
I think that lends itself to another interesting discussion where it's like, another similar player sitting for agency is like a Zach Levine. Like, what type of money? Like, do you think he'll get similar money to Donovan Mitchell? Do you think that
I think Zach Levine is.
Do you think he's going to leave Chicago? I just think it's.
I think he's going to leave Chicago. I think he's gone from Chicago for sure.
I tend to agree because I don't think they want to pay him the money he's worth. That's why
I think he wants out as it is. I mean, you kind of see some of his comments. I think you can just kind of see that. I think Zach Levine is a guy who, I mean, he's really had not resurgence, and upsurgence these last few years.
Yeah.
I think he'll go where the money takes him, if I'm being honest. I think, I don't want to say what these guys will think, but like when you're a guy like that who was in the league for a few years and wasn't really, hitting their stride, and then you go somewhere else. I mean, is this the first time he's hit free agency or no?
It's like the first time he's unrestricted free agent because he's only.
Okay. He made like 18 million though, right?
Remember, he was traded in the first Jimmy Butler trade.
Right.
From Chicago to Minnesota. And it's crazy because he was just remembered he was known as like a role player dunker. And then he was.
Yeah.
It's a shame that injury really. Sorry, we're getting a little off course now, but I think it's an interesting discussion about free agents in the league. But I think like Zach Levine was great this year before his knee injury, and I would be really scared to pay him with that knee. I really would be, because this is a guy who looked like a dynamic, like one of the Chicago Bulls were the 1 seed for a quarter of the year, like longer than a quarter of the year. I mean, and then when he got hurt, they fell off a cliff. But he's an injury prone player. He's torn his ACL twice. He has consistent knee issues. Like I just don't know whether this is a guy that a lot of teams are going to be comfortable paying.
I think all it takes is one team, and I think they'll absolutely be a team, because you got to remember, this is a competitive league, and when you have a guy like Zach Levine, who he really had a great year. I mean, he's had a few great years now, and I mean, teams are going to want this guy no matter what. I think, and I've learned that in the NBA, and I think he'll get his money. I think, I think he's one of those guys that, like you said, like he's an injury prone guy. Kind of had he's been in the league for a little bit now, hasn't really gotten that huge contract, so. I think he'll go where the money takes him, and rightfully so. I mean, he deserves to get paid. He deserves to get a huge contract, and he should go where the money, the max money. I mean, unless it's close and you got one team who's, a contender, and one team that's, the Sacramento Kings. I mean, go where the money takes you. So I don't know. I mean, it's tough to say what team, I think, because like, I don't know what the cap situation is with a lot of these teams, to be honest. I don't know who could even afford a contract of Zach Levine out of free agency like that. I mean, there's a lot of good free agents that are going to be
Sixers
on the table. I mean, it's going to be very interesting. So
Sixers and
We'll
Zach
see.
Levine have been linked. And that's why I brought it. I don't know how I feel about
Well,
that.
I don't know. I would assume that would mean that Harden would have to not return them, right?
No, it would
Or they
mean
would
that
have to sign and trade with Tobias or
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
they'd get rid of Tobias and hope that Harden would take less than a max, which is what they're hoping for.
Harden, I mean, yeah, he does
He
not.
needs to opt in.
I
He
can't
just
give
needs,
Harden a max.
absolutely not. He needs to what he needs to do is just opt in and you're under contract for another year. You're going to get a huge amount of money, and let's see how it plays out.
It would be crazy. I mean, how he like messed up and didn't opt in time for his player option at the deadline. Like now, if he opts out and just leaves, like that would be pretty crazy. I don't think he'll leave though because Daryl Morey and
there's only one team that would be desperate enough to pay him, and they don't even have the money.
What team do you think would be desperate enough?
The Lakers, 100%, because they're always like at the end of the day, the Lakers will attract.
If they could offload off Westbrook's contract, though, would they?
Yeah, it's never going to happen though. Like in my opinion, like it'll never.
He's got 1 year left. I think a team like Oklahoma would take like a first round pick and bring Russ back. Oklahoma, I think actually might be a team that would do that.
Yeah, but wait, what first round picks do the Lakers have to trade?
They have, I think, one or two that like rogue first round picks that they have. I think
like just floating around somewhere.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Look, I mean, the Russell Westbrook conversation is another interesting one. Because
I mean, you hear that the Lakers are planning to keep him, which is I mean, I think that team last year was a mess. I think they tried to bring in all these random guys and just build a team together.
I don't get why they didn't just run it back personally. They were banged up against the team that they were beating the team that eventually won the West before AD got hurt. I really don't, for as great as LeBron, for my estimation, the greatest player of all time, as bad as he is, I feel like he's equally as bad at assembling a roster to win a championship. I mean,
well, it's he's just had trouble. I think the Lakers have just run into such trouble because right now they have no people under contract outside of him and Anthony Davis. I mean, that's the problem where
an example.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Oh, sorry. An example of like just how incompetently I feel they're run right now. And I feel like they were truly saved by LeBron's decision to go there, or else they'd still be where they were 7-8 years ago. I think like them penny pinching Alex Caruso, one of probably the second best defensive player in your championship run. What is that? Why are you penny pinching Alex Caruso? And he's a game changer. Like he was a meme for a while, but that's a game changing player. Like yeah. I don't get, like, it's just an example of how badly they run. But sorry, keep going, Griff.
No, I just think that the problem with them is, I mean, and this is what happened this year. I mean, they've traded all of these guys on their team also. Like they've had all this young talent through the years. Obviously, I get they had to trade a lot of guys to get Anthony Davis, and you got a championship out of that. So, you know, they won't regret that for a second because you got a championship. But in terms of maximizing your current championship potential, you have LeBron James. I mean, I think part of the problem is Anthony Davis is always seeming to be hurt. So I think Anthony Davis has to stay on the floor. Otherwise, this team is effed because, you know, he's clogging up the books right now with all their money. They have to figure out a way to construct a championship roster. And it's going to be really tough with the three contracts that it seems like they're going to have of LeBron, AD, and Russell Westbrook. We'll see what they do for depth. I mean, last year it clearly didn't work. So you can't try and run it back with those guys because that was just an absolute disaster. I really don't know what they're going to do because, you know, I've said this in the past and I know this will never happen, but part of me feels that one of the best things the Lakers could do, and I know this has a 0% chance of happening, is trade LeBron James. I think trading LeBron James would be, obviously, you know, it's tough because, you know, LeBron, how old is he? 37, 38 now?
37, 37.
This would never happen, but I mean, what they would get for LeBron, it would just give them a reset. It would give them a reset in terms of salary that would allow them to, you know, really pursue some other guys because I'll be honest.
The thing about the Lakers though is that they're not a basketball team. They're a brand. They would destroy their branding around the world. No, you're right. And you prefaced it with that, but I'm just saying
0%. Yeah.
No, I think like also
I just don't see a way they can build a championship team right now because they don't have the money to. You look at these championship teams. Look at the two teams in the finals right now. Sorry for interrupting you. You got the Celtics and the Warriors. Look at how deep these teams are and how much talent they have from top to bottom.
Although I think you can make I do agree. However, I think a lot of it really was just like than like getting like I don't think Steph was at his best like even last year. Like I feel like he was like he was great last year. He finished third in MVP voting, but I feel like he was playing much more Warriors productive, like conducive basketball.
And obviously both the teams have the superstars, but you look at the other guys. I mean, the Warriors have these guys like obviously Draymond's kind of a star, but like
that was my whole point about
Jordan Poole, Gary Payton II, Kuminga, Moody. I mean, there's just all these guys. Lakers don't have that right now.
And that was my point about like the Westbrook thing was such a disaster because they did have that. Like for as much of a mean as he was, like Kyle Kuzma proved in Washington, in my opinion at least, that he's like a solid role guy. Like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a solid role guy, and they're like the issue is talk about more injuries. Kendrick Nunn didn't even play this year. Like Taylor. The other thing is that Lakers fans are So let me go. Let me just say something. Like Lakers fans, stop hyping up your young talent and then complain when LeBron and AD don't get enough help. The reason that they traded KCP and Kuzma and they were so confident is because they thought these young guys in Nunn and THG could step up, and it turned out they weren't on that level. Like they weren't on the level of contributing role players. And like you said, imagine if they had gotten what's his name? If they had gotten DeMar DeRozan instead, which was he wanted to be there. They chose Russell Westbrook over him.
DeMar would have taken a discount too.
Yeah, which means that they probably could have gotten Buddy Hield on their team. They probably could have gotten some role players on their team. Like, just the whole Russ thing was such a disaster, and he's really crippled two franchises. Look at the position the Houston Rockets franchise was in before Russ came. Like, they had just taken, in my estimation, the greatest team of all time to 7 games, and then Harden. That like a lot of star players just have bad eyes for talent evaluation. Like Harden was like. They traded Chris Paul and picks for Russell Westbrook. Not just Chris Paul for Russell Westbrook. They traded Chris Paul and picks for Russell Westbrook. So, like, and now, I mean, I don't even have to mention. I mean, the Rockets are on the up and up because they have a young star in Jalen Green. But, like we don't have to mention. They're not what they were 2 years ago. So, like, I just feel like you can't be trading for, like, I just don't get it how the Lakers saw him cripple Houston and then LeBron was like, let me get that on my team.
I mean, I think the thing with Russ is like in previous years, I mean, obviously he wasn't going to come into the Lakers and average a triple double, which I think is the problem. And like you look at, all the years in the past, he's been playing, statistically, he's had very successful seasons.
Right.
But when you pair him with AD and LeBron, like he's just not going to do that. Like he's not going to be the same statistic guy. And it's like Russ I think his whole struggle was blown out of proportion. Like I don't think he was as horrific as people made it seem. Obviously it was bad, but this guy has always kind of been a guy like that where he's not really been a great shooter. He's never been like, I think it was just blown out of proportion and popularized because the spotlight of the Los Angeles Lakers, when he was on the Thunder, when he was on the Rockets, when he was on the Wizards, you're not really seeing those, full struggles and, they're not being illuminated. He's not having as many national television games. But like when he's on the Lakers, I mean, yeah, you're in the spotlight with LeBron James. Like, yeah, every little mistake you make is going to be overanalyzed in the media. So I mean, Russ, we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't think that they can win a championship with their current those big three, and because I just don't see a way they can build around them three. You'll have, I guess, the veterans minimum. Maybe you can get someone, but who else are you going to sign? I mean, guys are going to have to take significant pay cuts. That to the point where they're making like no money. And I just don't see that happening. I mean, I don't know, man. LeBron is really going to have to work a miracle to get a team that would be close to a championship at this point because they just have no cap space.
I think the one thing that is working.
And I don't get them saying that they wouldn't trade a first round pick to trade Russ because these first round picks in the NBA are literally worth
they're nothing. Worthless. Like the Nets just imagine that happening in the NFL where the Nets just deferred their pick to the Sixers. What? At pick 23 too. It's not like it's like pick 47.
They said that the Sixers can have their pick.
But I don't get. Okay, I'll take 23.
First round picks have literally no value in the NBA. It is all about. I mean, the top 3 picks, absolutely. Like at the top 3 or 5, yeah, you're talking. But after that, I mean, it's like. It's just all about your talent evaluation and picking the guy you like best because it's not the NFL where first round pick. Like
I know better than anyone. The Sixers picked Markelle Fultz at 1 and Tyrese Maxey at 21. So it's like you know, it's like
It really is. First round
we got
picks
a
mean
little off
nothing.
topic. I don't know. I thought,
We're definitely. I thought we were talking about finals, but I mean, this is an interesting conversation, definitely. And the whole. I mean, those reports. I mean, it's hard to believe at that point. Like, it's like what they went trade a first round pick
well,
in
like,
NBA
all
for
right,
Russell
now we
Westbrook.
now we can get into like a deeper institutional discussion of the Lakers, which is like apparently like the Rambis family is essential. Have you seen this? That
I've
like
seen that
the
they're running
Rambis
the team,
family,
and
who like Kurt Rambis has been out of basketball for a decade plus at this point, and he was a horrible head coach when he was an average, like he was a role player on their championship teams, and now like him and his wife, and mostly his wife, are running the team. I don't like he was gonna appoint himself head coach at a point. I don't obviously they ended up hiring Darvin Ham a couple days ago, but I mean I don't
which I think is a good hire for them.
which I think that they needed definitely an outside mind to come in and view some new life, and especially
Who's like just been, Darvin Ham just was on a good finals team. He's
no,
had
yeah,
experience coaching superstars. Like, that's a player who you need, not a player, a coach you need. You need someone like, I just kind of get the
I
feeling
was
from what
I
the
was
Bucks
hoping
say,
they were
like
gonna hire. Sorry, I was hoping
like
they were gonna hire Glenn.
Glenn, yeah. Oh my God. I mean, or if that you heard that they were looking into Doc Rivers. I mean, oh my God.
Yeah, yeah, Glenn. I
But
mean,
Darvin Ham's a good hire. I don't know. The whole Rambus thing is just crazy. And the Lakers are a mess right now, for being honest. I mean, it sucks because LeBron right now, I mean, you want to see, he had all those, 8 finals in a row, I believe it was. And now it's like,
not nine.
it just, the Lakers, 8 or 9. Yeah.
Pretty good either way.
And now it's like the dude came to the Lakers, obviously won the 1 finals, but has missed the playoffs in 2 years and made the play-in and won. Like, they've been a mess in 3 of the 4 years that LeBron has been there. Total mess. And the championship team they had was very good. I don't know why they
I wonder.
disbanded
Like
it.
people say it's a bubble ring, but that team was the best team in the NBA by a lot that year. Like they were like that team was
AD
50.
was playing like a top 5 player. LeBron was a top 5
No,
player.
yeah, they were the best
And their
team in
role
basketball by
players
a
were
lot that
very
year.
good.
No, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to the current NBA Finals. Obviously,
Yeah.
Boston, Golden State. Game 1 was very interesting. I mean, this really looked like, I mean, you see Steph Curry, I believe he made, 6 threes, and was it the first or the second quarter, first quarter, or first half, something like that. I mean, they just collapsed, and then, the Celtics came out, and then game 2 was just the polar. I mean, Golden State just dominated in the third quarter, and that was that in game 2. So what are your thoughts right now in this series?
Yeah, for me, I like Golden State in this series for multiple reasons. Obviously, one being that I'm a Sixers fan, but the other being that I think it seems like Jason Tatum is struggling a lot. I understand he had 28 points last night, I believe, but he was a minus 36 if I'm correct. I don't have it pulled up here, but I think
I believe it was minus 36, 2 for 10 from not the 3, so 2-point shots.
Yeah, so not good enough for Jason Tatum, and I think while Boston was outplayed for almost the entirety of game 1, and then they went on a shooting stretch for 5 minutes where they couldn't miss, and that ended up being the difference in the game. I was watching with a friend, and I just didn't think it was just, like I said to him, I just didn't think it was sustainable. And I think it's so hard to predict because Boston really likes to make it tough on themselves. I mean, even Ime Udoka said just that. But look, man, I think the key in this series to me is Jordan Poole. If Jordan Poole steps up, this is not a close series. The Warriors are the best team in basketball by far when Jordan Poole is a functional piece. But look, I think there have been times these playoffs where the lights have been far too bright for him, and it's understandable from someone who's 23. But I think, I see it with Tyrese Maxey when he plays for the Sixers. He'll have some unbelievable all-time young guy playoff games. But the problem with young guys, much like even a Jason Tatum type of character, is that when these guys just go missing sometimes, and that lends me even, I can even shift to Tatum here for a second, is that Jason Tatum just goes missing far too often for me.
Game 1, 3 for 17. I mean, he had the 13 assists that kind of shielded himself.
I think the Celtics have it by far the best roster, by far the best depth, in my opinion, in basketball. I mean,
them and the Warriors, these are the top 2 teams.
No, yeah. I mean, I think the Bucks, when healthy, also have very good depth.
Yeah.
They just, yeah.
Lakers too are sneaky.
Nah, yeah. I just think it's tough and like it's tough for me to put him among these top guys when Jason Tatum just is disappearing as often as. But look, he's in the finals, and I'm saying that. So I don't know. I mean, I just don't know how legitimate this Al Horford run is.
Yeah.
And I think this Al Horford run, like Al Horford's playoffs, like Al Horford is the reason why they are where they are right now. I can't believe that's coming out of my mouth, but it's the truth. This is a guy who majorly stepped up in the Miami games. I mean, he was one of the best. I think he was probably the third best player during that Miami series on either team. And I think, I don't know, man. I just think Boston's end of game decision making, even in that game 7 against Miami, really isn't too good. I think Marcus Smart likes to play hero ball a little too often. I think that they don't pass the ball. I don't think what they do is conducive to winning at the end of these games. And I just think I really can't see them beating the Warriors here. I think that this Warriors death machine is just going too far. And I think, to be honest, I'm tired of the Steve Kerr slander because this man they were beaten in game 1. They were, and they adjusted. They killed them. They literally took away everything they were beat at in game 1, and the Celtics couldn't score the ball. And I mean, I don't know about Tatum being able to carry them to a series victory here. I don't. And I think that's what's going to have to happen at the end of the day for a Celtics victory.
I think when we were making our finals predictions,
we both had the Warriors in there for sure.
I guess we didn't even make it, but I mean, my whole thought since the start has been Warriors in 6. I just think that Golden State is definitely a level above Boston, and I think they, like you said, I mean, Boston really needs like you look at game 1 and you see, Al Horford had 26 points, Derek White had 21 points. Those guys, I mean, that's what Boston needs to beat Golden State, is guys like Al Horford and Derek White to play out of their mind. And to be honest, game 1 might have been the best game of the series. There's a very high chance that was the best game of the series for both Al Horford and Derek White, which doesn't bode well for Boston. Jason Tatum, like you said, I mean, he really is going to have to step up because obviously, sure, he had 28 last night, but like you said, the plus-minus differential was horrific. And this guy hasn't played too well. And, the reason he's criticized so much and looked at through such a big lens is because he's considered a top 10 player in the NBA, first team all NBA, I believe, this year. Like, you got to play like a superstar at that point. And that's why a guy like Devin Booker, I mean, I think that his game 7, I think Chris Paul really took a bunch of that slander for that.
But he was the worst player
the Mavericks.
Yeah.
But Devin Booker also, I mean, he was first team all NBA. He was horrific as well. I mean, he really kind of, it seemed like, just snuck away from all the slander that CP3 was getting, and when it really should have been both of them. And I actually do think we kind of touched on how both of them were really bad. But obviously Chris Paul, the all-time choker, it seems, at this point. But yeah, Boston, I mean, you look at game 2, Al Horford put up 2 points, and Derek White's been a good piece. He put up 12 and whatnot. Right. But Marcus Smart, 2 points. I mean, like, if you don't have guys like that going off, I mean, outside of Tatum and Brown, if no one's really doing anything, you're done. Like, the Golden State Warriors have just such a good team. And this is what, I mean, Klay Thompson was 4 for 19, 1 for 8 from 3, and they won. 1 for 9 from 3, and they won by like 20. Like, he might
be a little lost at this stage, sadly.
I think Klay Thompson has not been himself. I think people, obviously what happened with Klay is just very sad. And the fact that he had to miss 2 whole years because of everything is just awful. And I feel for him. I think people like to run with the narrative that he's back. And, I think everyone understands that he's not the same guy. And he's definitely, he can put up very strong performances, but when Klay Thompson left the game, Klay Thompson was one of the best players in basketball. And at this point, do I think Klay Thompson's an all-star caliber player? No, definitely not.
All right, settle the debate for me. Hold on. Sorry. I just have to. I have to ask you, who is a better all-time player, Klay Thompson or Damian Lillard? I'll give you my opinion first. I think it's absolutely Damian Lillard because You can't compare a third guy.
I think Damian Lillard who's the better player. I think Damian Lillard, but if you're looking at all-time great, I mean, Klay Thompson's got the championships. So
I don't know if
I
that's
would
fair,
put,
though, because like you can't say that Anthony Davis is better than Charles Barkley.
but like Klay Thompson was, Anthony Davis has one championship. Klay Thompson was a superstar player on.
He was an all-star. He was never a top 10
He
player.
was the number 2 option on Golden State for their first finals, and was the number
I would
2
agree,
option on
but
Golden State.
Yeah, but I would argue.
their,
I would make the argument that Klay was the third best player on that team.
what, Draymond? You're saying, or
Well, I think Draymond was definitely more important. Was definitely as important as Klay.
I think it's tough. I think that Damian Lillard is definitely a better player than Klay Thompson.
I just think it's an interesting reflection on Dame's legacy because, like, for years he's been considered one of the better players in the NBA. But at the end of the day, can you even say he's better than Klay Thompson? Like, I think the fact that it's a debate is very
well. He's definitely better than Klay Thompson. It's just like if you're looking at it as an accomplishment standpoint, Damian Lillard. You know, it's an unfortunate situation because if you put Damian Lillard on the Golden State Warriors, it's like, is Dame as good as Steph? No, but like, does Dame probably get a ring with one of those Warriors teams? Like, probably, especially if you put him on the KD Warriors. Like,
I don't. Oh, if you put him on the KD Warriors, absolutely,
yeah. But like, maybe not the first year with 2015. I don't know if he gets the ring, but like, I don't know. Dame, it's a tough conversation. Obviously, Dame is not Steph, and I don't need to compare them, but it's very interesting. But yeah, I mean, the Warriors. I mean, you've got Jordan Poole, Draymond Green, Looney. I mean, there's just all these guys, man. It really is impressive what they've assembled. Otto Porter. I mean, yeah, I'm just looking at.
Imagine if they hadn't bought. The craziest part to think about is that they completely botched the number 2 pick, and people will be like, LaMelo, sorry, I'm not going to hear this argument that like LaMelo would have stunted the championship hopes of the Warriors. Like,
No.
It would literally.
I just think it would have put Klay Thompson in a. I think the person whose growth would have been stunted would have been Andrew Wiggins. It would have been Andrew Wiggins that I think.
And people say it's like it would have been like prevented Poole's breakout. Like, I don't agree. Like, I think Poole and LaMelo could play perfectly fine with one another. I think, like you said, it would probably be Wiggins and Klay most affected. I just think it's crazy that like you made this point. Like, they have they have probably the best roster in basketball by a lot, and like
it just all kind of assembled this year.
Yeah, but they completely botched. They're arguably the most important piece of the entire rebuild, and it didn't matter.
They did have top picks this year though. You know, Kuminga and Moody haven't been amazing.
Yeah, but if you
those are quality players.
Yeah, but if you replace, do you think that the Warriors?
And obviously they hit it out of the park with the number 2 pick. Like, no doubt they botched that, and that was looked at as like the key to their rebuild, the key to championship contention. But look at what they also did. I mean, they Jordan Poole has emerged as a diamond in the rough, and Wiggins, they've really evolved. And then you've got these guys like Gary Payton they've run, and he's been great. Damian Lee they've developed. Like,
to me, it all comes down. That all comes down to back to one thing though, and I really think that's Steph Curry's greatness. Like, the reason that all these guys are able to be who they are and even be able to do this is because 4 defenders are focused on Steph Curry every time he has the ball. Like, it's just the truth. And I think when you look back on it, Steph is going to have if he wins this ring, he's going to have a combo to be one of the top 10 best players who's ever played this game. Like, change the sport.
I think Steph Curry is the top 10 player of all time.
I agree. I'm not trying to. I just want to. I think he absolutely is. I think he changed the sport, and I just think like. I still think he's so underrated. I think there's this narrative. Like, I just want him to get that Finals MVP just to cement his legacy. And I think it's such a joke he doesn't have one because, like, let's be real. Andre Iguodala was not the Warriors' best player in that series. Steph Curry was. Steph Curry averaged like 25 and 7 in that series. I don't, it's whatever. And I think it's unfortunate. Sorry, I'm going to get a little sentimental. Is that those KD years robbed us of, the conversation about Steph's greatness, even potentially approaching the best of the best, because you couldn't really compare him in terms of, because he had another all-time great on his team. Like, it just sucked that happened. It really ruined the parity of the NBA, and it ruined some great NBA discourse. But it's like, I just think Steph Curry is still, despite, being a global superstar, despite being, one of the most iconic faces of the game, it's still such an underrated player to me.
Definitely. I mean, I think that, this generation of basketball, I think if you look at guys who could potentially be top 10 all time. Obviously LeBron, and Steph is there for me. And, I think, you've got two other guys who I think could maybe right now find themselves way down the line in
That's
that
Giannis
conversation.
and
And that's
Luka.
Giannis and Luka. Yeah. I think those are the only four guys currently playing basketball that can get there. KD to me, I mean, as great as he is, I just don't think he's top 10 player of all time. And by no means am I saying Luka is the top 10 or Giannis right now, but the way Giannis is playing, you would have to imagine that he'll be a top 10 player when it's all said and done. If, God forbid, he doesn't get injured along the way. And same with Luka. I mean, Luka's definitely got to up his game even a little bit though to, get there. But
Yeah, well, we need Luka with some real role player.
Luka's got to
to
get some rings too. Top 10 all time, you got to be a
Yeah, no,
championship
you got
caliber.
to have two. I think you probably got to have 2 or 3 rings to be in the combo.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Warriors in 6 for me is what I've kind of been thinking, and that's what I'm going to stick with here. So I don't know what you're thinking, but I'm assuming you've said
Yeah, I'll
Warriors.
go Warriors. I'll go Warriors and Sixers.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, this NBA offseason should be interesting. Crazy that the Warriors are back, but I mean, what a job they've done. And man, Jordan Poole, I mean, it's just the fountain of youth in Golden State right now. I mean, the kid's about to turn 23 years of age, and then they've got so much more young talent. And Steph Curry, obviously, still is playing ball. I mean, it's just pure insanity how good
Yeah,
this
and I
team
think
is.
I touched on this earlier, but it's really like his greatness and his longevity has allowed them to do 2 things at once. And you also mentioned this is like at the same time they're competing for these championships, they're also developing their young core.
Yeah.
Like it's allowed them to put their hands in both baskets, which is so rare.
They have a next generation. I mean, obviously Wiseman, who knows what that's going to be
He's
at this
done.
point.
He's cooked. He's a cooked product.
You think?
Yeah. I thought so. The craziest part is I thought so even before he was hurt. I never thought he was good enough to be the 2nd overall pick for me. To be fair, I was also a huge Onyeka and Kongwu fan. And
The
he's
problem
been a
is, I
solid
think
player.
that what we're seeing is this. James Wiseman, obviously, he left Memphis. There was all that controversy. I think losing that whole year, man. I mean, I think you learn when you're in college for a year, even the G League I mean, the jury's still out on going to the G League is the right move. But man, when you play in college, like I think there's a level of where when you're like the star guy and you're really learning how to be, college is
Unless you're playing
college
in
is not
Europe,
the
of course, like
NBA.
Luka. Of course, you're.
Yes, obviously, but like college is not the NBA. But like when you're playing, and same with LaMelo. LaMelo went overseas and this turned out great. But like, I think you need to have a year in college. I think it can be so helpful for some of these guys. And when you just take a year off, like I think that's what I'm trying to say is when you just straight up take a year off, basically from playing competitive basketball in
Yeah,
a
I mean,
key
I think
year of development, like when you would see, obviously, when players are still able to go from high school to league, they played, LeBron, Kobe, those guys, they went from high school right to the NBA and started playing and developing.
Yeah, and I
James
think
Wiseman essentially just took a year off, and obviously you
yeah,
have this whole training thing, but like it hasn't panned out. And I know that's a rare case. You don't really see that happen too often. But I think it really hurt his development. And I think that James Wiseman, obviously he's had the injuries and everything, but I think, that to me is a key year of development. And a
yeah, and
lot of guys can use that year, I think.
I think that this G League Ignite thing is really going to end up working out, though. I mean, especially if their first big name guy is Jalen Green, and I mean, he was excellent to end the year. He got a lot of flack, but he was excellent to end the year. I mean, he won back-to-back Rookie of the Month. I'm a big Jalen Green guy. Let's see how.
I don't love him, to be honest, but I mean, yeah, he played good at the end of the year. But again, the jury's still out on the G League Ignite, and if that is the way to go. I mean, Jalen Green, I mean, what was he, like the number 2 ranked prospect, basically?
Yeah, he
So
was the
I
number
mean,
2 pick. I think Mobley. I thought Mobley was way better coming out. He's still, and I think Cade Cunningham and Mobley. I think what a disgrace Scotty Barnes won Rookie of the Year. Holy Jesus, not Mobley or Cade. Like it's so obviously to appease that awful Canadian. Like I'm just gonna say it. Sorry, Brett. That awful Canadian fan base up in Canada, or that awful. I just think like they just like. I just can't believe. I know as a Cavs fan, you probably weren't too happy with
it
that.
is what it is. Like, honestly, at this point, I mean, like awards what they are. Like, I think the NBA is just like it's just stupid. Some of these
It's
awards,
such a joke,
but,
yeah. Well, because the parameters shift every year. Every year, it's a new thing.
I just think with the NBA, like, I just don't think like the right guy never. It just seems like the right guy never gets the award. Like in I do feel like in the MLB, genuinely, the guy who deserves it gets the award. Like Mike Trout has won a lot of MVPs, and Mike Trout hasn't made the playoffs in years, and that's how it should be, if we're being honest. Like when you are as
Four-time
good as
MVP,
someone like
four-time
that,
runner-up too.
yeah, and you see Otani won it last year. I mean, like those guys aren't on winning teams, but they're winning the award because they're the best player, and that's how it should be. Like when James Harden had that, was it?
36.
Yeah,
He had
that
a
was the year,
36,
right?
10, or 36, 8, and 7 and didn't win MVP. What a
Like,
joke.
come on, man. Like the NBA is just. I mean, look, this year was tough with Jokic and I know Embiid, and I think Jokic. That was very close. I think it's very hard to say who deserved to win that, and Embiid. Well, I guess Jokic missed some time. You said too, right?
Jokic played in, I think it was like 6 or 7 more games than Embiid this year. So
It
nothing
was
too
close. I mean,
significant. It's just
who knows? I don't know.
my thing is just
This
like
year wasn't the worst year I've seen from the
no,
NBA.
definitely not the worst
But
one.
like LeBron should have way more MVPs also.
Yeah, my only thing is just like with the Embiid situation is that like I know it's not supposed to be narrative based, but at a certain stage, like it is narrative based if you're choosing to give a guy back to back MVP. Like if you're back to back MVP, and I felt the same way about Giannis and Harden too, where I thought Harden should have got it. Giannis is, or like I think Harden should have got
Giannis
it
won 2 MVPs.
too. He went back to back. I think he's stolen 1 and arguably 2 from James Harden, to be honest, but it's whatever. Like I just think this whole concept of like back to back MVPs, like you have to be doing something truly, truly special. Like James Harden was averaging 36, 10, and or 36, 8, and 7. Sorry, I keep saying 36. Yeah. To me, it's
he had like tons of 50-point games. I remember. Yeah, he should have won.
Joel Embiid, like it sucks. Like I just need him to get that ring. Like I need it at the end of the day. I need it more than anything else in pro sports because like this man, his legacy cannot be second team All NBA. He's one of the greatest centers to ever play the sport. That cannot be his legacy because a bunch of idiots are too dumb to vote. To realize that the NBA is not freaking played 1 through 5 anymore. Isn't that the whole appeal of Nikola Jokic in the first place? So why are you voting him as a pure like? I don't get it. It gets me going. Like the fact that Jason Tatum made first team over him this year. The fact that Devin Booker made first team over him over this year. It's whatever. And like I think hopefully, like you said, people will learn to look back and not value any of these bullshit awards. But it's like I do think that I just think that the issue with like the NBA media in particular is like there's a huge group think, and specifically like behind some of the ESPN guys. Like I think like these guys just like the narrative to me in the beginning of the year was like, oh, it's Steph's year again, so he's going to win MVP. And then for like 4 months, it was like Embiid's the best player in the sport. And then all of a sudden, that fucking straw poll came out, and it was like Jokic is 62 MVP votes, and now everybody's like, now we have to vote Jokic for MVP. Like, I just don't get it. There's such a massive group, and why wasn't Giannis further in the conversation? Like, I would have been better with Giannis winning it than Jokic, to be honest. But it's like, it's whatever that you're going to have one of the greatest. It's just going to be embarrassing for the NBA when you're going to have one of the greatest centers to ever play the sport. And he's going to have, not that, but he's still a relatively young guy. And I think hopefully with new medicine and new surgeries, and I think hopefully he'll be able to defy a lot of expectations with his legs. And I think he at least has, 3-4 good years left in him. So we'll see. I think it sucks that that's what's going to show in his resume. Sorry for the rant, but that's what I have to say about the NBA's award voting system.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, Nikola Jokic, a 2-time MVP, is just kind of crazy. Yeah. I mean, I have no idea. Honestly, the NBA is just in a weird spot. I don't know. I don't have too much more to say. I feel like you covered it pretty well. So I'm going to leave it at that, honestly. We both have Warriors in 6. Stay tuned. Yeah. Obviously, next week we'll talk about whatever is remaining. I mean, they'll probably play like 2 games from now until then. Maybe if we're lucky, 2 games. I don't even know. Such a joke. I mean, we're waiting till Wednesday for the next game. And then I guess Friday is the next one. So yeah, I guess there'll be 2 games from now on. So we'll talk about games 3 and 4 next week. But with that, we'll jump ship here a little.
Sorry, one more NBA thing. Do you want to hear an absolutely insane stat? Draymond Green is number 10 all time in finals assists, ahead of the likes of Kobe and Larry Bird.
And what, 5 finals now?
Yeah.
Not that shocking. I mean, it's crazy, but it's just when you're there 5 years, it's gonna happen. The crazy thing is, I mean, people don't this is another thing, but like the fact that LeBron James made 8 or 9 straight finals. What was it? Was it 9? You're saying?
I think LeBron made 9 in a row. You could be right though. It might have been 8, but let's see how many in a row.
Finals history.
Well, he played. I could name it when he played. He played in 2011. He played in 2012, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. He played in 2020. No, it was 8, and then he made 2020. Yeah. He's made 9, and then it was 8 in a row.
9 right? In 10 years and 8 in a row.
What a joke!
I mean, I know Michael Jordan's got the 6 finals, but man, I mean, I know I'm biased as well, so it's hard to say. But I do believe
here's
LeBron
my thing
is
about
the greatest.
Here's my thing about the LeBron hate is people will be like, he went through an easy East, but is it a coincidence that that East got insanely strong once he left? Come on.
Shit, I just closed out of some stuff. All right. Yeah, LeBron is that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, we can have maybe.
Yeah, we don't have time. Yeah, we'll save that. But all right, with that, I mean the MLB we haven't talked about, you know, I guess I don't even know when we last talked about it, but obviously right now, you know, our teams are you know, doing well. The Phillies had a little hot streak. They are 4 under 500 now. The Mets right now are the best team in the NL East, the best team in the NL, I should say. 18 games of 500, 8.5 game lead. I do want to ask you, I mean, we'll talk about a few things, but I mean, do you think at this point that the Mets have the NL East, or do you think that, you know, the Braves or the Phillies, you know, could maybe come back and make a run at it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Braves definitely have a better shot at the Phillies at this point, but I think the Mets probably have it locked up. I mean, 12.5 games really is just, it's a huge margin to have built up by the time June starts. What is it at this point, 11.5? I'm not sure exactly.
They're 8.5 over the Braves.
8.5?
Yeah.
I don't know. No, the Mets got it locked down, dude. I mean, look, the fact that they're doing this without their pitching is pretty unbelievable, and I always forget that. Like, the other thing is that, like, Scherzer will be healthy, obviously, but we'll see what when exactly. I thought DeGrom was supposed to be like.
He threw a bullpen recently.
Yeah, I thought he was. Yeah,
they're taking it really slow, which I understand because they're 18 games over 500 and he hasn't thrown a pitch. So there's no reason to rush him back. And that's the difference between last year and this year. When Jacob DeGrom got hurt in the middle of the season last year, the team completely collapsed. This year, I mean, he hasn't pitched and they're 18 over 500. So, like, imagine when you replace Trevor Williams with Jacob DeGrom in your rotation. Like, it's going to be a joke. Like,
and I mean, look, I mean, it just sucks to watch this, but look, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm praying on a Mets collapse. I'm praying on the Mets downfall, and that's sort of what I'm hoping for, just an annual midsummer collapse. But look, like you said, I think it's just like the team not being built around one player essentially, and like,
yeah.
Pete Alonso is just mashing the baseball at a certain point. Like, Pete Alonso is just mashing it. I mean, he's on pace for like
top 3.
He's on pace for 47 dingers, right? And like 120 RBIs.
150 RBIs.
150 RBIs.
Yeah.
Holy shit. But yeah. I mean, look, this guy's gonna.
He's in the MVP conversation. I mean, he's gonna. I think him, Betts, and Goldschmidt, I think, are the top 3 guys right now, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. If Bryce wasn't hurt and played on a competent team.
Yeah, Bryce is always up there, but the way Pete is playing right now, I think he's got to be up there.
Look, I mean, I don't even know what else to say about the Mets. Like, I will say one thing though, and I think, like, in the last few years at least, like, I think the sport, or at least in analysis from what I've seen, definitely has like overlooked the manager position. I really do think it has, and I think this like Buck was the perfect fit. He was the perfect hire.
Yeah,
like, it's just like, I hate to say it, but like, like, just to reduce my analysis to this, but like, I just saw with the Phils, like, the vibes are off. Like, this is not, like, they hated the manager. Like, you can't, like, a team isn't going to play good baseball. And I think, like if you just, I'm just going to shift the comment to the Phils for 1 second. Like, there's a point where, like, Girardi wasn't standing up for his guys in the infamous Schwarber incident. I think the whole team was just done with him after that. And I think, like you said, like, you got to make it, like, when you have a huge payroll and you're not performing, like, here's my thing. Like, you got to let your star players figure it out. And like, you can't have guys that are you gotta you can't turn on them. You gotta make a change at that manager position for everything else. And I think it's just benefited the Mets. And I'm just hoping to see. I really am. I'm not gonna lie. I'm just hoping to see a carbon copy of what happened with the Mets with the Phils with this with notorious dog Rob Thompson at the helm. But I don't know. It's just sorry. I'm just sort of ranting on Joe Girardi's disengagement. But it's just it sucked to see while the Mets had obviously struck gold.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very curious. Obviously, Rob Thompson's the guy right now, but we'll see how he does rest of the year. I mean, I'm very curious to see what the Phillies end up doing at manager in the future, because that obviously will be a huge thing next offseason for them, especially if they go under 500 with this current roster and how much money they're making.
Disaster.
Things are going to have to start changing, just like what happened with the Mets. I mean, and that's the difference, I guess, between the Phillies and the Mets. With Cohen, the Mets kept spending this offseason. They went crazy. But with the Phillies owner, what's his name again?
John Middleton.
John Middleton. I don't know how much higher he's going to go with the payroll, if we're being honest. And that's not a dig at him. He's already done. He's already put together a huge payroll, but he needs
the first time. It's his first time ever, though. And to be fair,
it is.
I'm not going to sit here and praise him because he let this idiot Andy McPhail run the franchise for 6 years, and that's why we're in the position we're in. He got hired immediately. He bought the team immediately, hired McPhail, was here for 6 years, and then he was so bad that they had to move him to ticket sales part of the team.
When did Middleton buy the team?
2012. First year we didn't make the playoffs, I believe.
And you haven't made it since. Interesting.
Yep.
Interesting. That is interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think the Mets right now, I mean, the series against the Dodgers, to me, I think it kind of just showed that their team is they can hang with just about anyone. I'm not really worried about them. I think that they are on their way to a division title, barring a Lindor and Pete Alonso injury, to be honest. I think that those guys are just difference makers for them and so huge to their success. And I mean, man, I do believe that if this team is a healthy rotation and a healthy team for the playoffs, and they go out and get another bat and some bullpen help at the deadline, I think that they are serious World Series contenders, because I just don't know a team who can go out if the Mets lineup is performing how it is, and their bullpen, they've got an elite closer in Edwin Diaz, some good arms out there. They've had the emergence of Colin Holderman, Steven Nagosic, Drew Smith. With the rotation of DeGrom, Scherzer, Bassett, Carrasco in the playoffs, I just don't know a team that can beat them, honestly. And I'm not even trying to be I know that there's going to be injuries, and I don't know who will be injured, but if that can be their rotation for playoffs, I just don't know who would beat them. I don't know your thoughts, but I mean, it's really tough.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Just sucks to see. I don't know. Jump to say it sucks to see. But I don't know. I just think, like you said, I think it's very I think as a Mets fan, you just got to be praying that once DeGrom comes back, he can stay healthy, because they're unstoppable.
Yeah, if DeGrom is not healthy, I don't believe they'll win the World Series. Right? They'll still make the playoffs, obviously, but they won't.
That's kind of what I'm reducing it to. It's I don't know.
They need Jacob DeGrom and Max Scherzer healthy. It's in the playoffs. Bottom line, if Chris Bassett is hurt, they might be able to. They might be fine. Max Scherzer and Jacob DeGrom have got to be healthy, because those are two guys that you can almost count on to win, I believe, in the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, although Mad Max last year, I don't know. Nah, I mean,
well, the dead arm, obviously.
Yeah. Nah.
DeGrom did in 2015.
Do you know how horrible it would be to watch a Mets? Do you know how horrible it would be to watch a Braves Mets series back-to-back, World Series back-to-back?
Oh, yeah, for you. I think the best, I'll be 100% honest. I mean, I'm obviously biased with this, but I do believe that the best thing that could happen for baseball is a Mets-Yankees World Series. I think that would do.
Yeah, that's a very New Yorker perspective. New York.
Obviously, but who in the world would not be excited to watch that series?
A Phillies fan. A Phillies fan.
Fair, but
you would have
as a baseball fan, imagine that series.
No, yes, of course. I mean, a Subway Series.
I mean, we saw it in 2000, but oh my god.
The other thing is just Oh God, that would be terrible. The
The
Yankees.
best two records in the AL and
That
NL.
Yankee, that talk about a starting rotation, baby. That Yankee starting rotation. My word.
It doesn't even make sense. I just don't believe
No, and
these
they're
guys
bad.
are
Like
as
they're
good
not
as they
good
are.
pitchers.
I
Like
know.
these guys aren't good pitchers.
I mean, maybe Nestor is just elite, and Nestor Cortez. I've been waiting for this guy to blow up, but I mean, at this point, I have to keep believing that this guy's as good as he's pitching.
Unreal.
Jameson Tyone and Jordan Montgomery though, like, and Severino, like, I don't in the playoffs. I do not believe in those guys to go out and like
They've been
dominate.
I mean, it's been. I'm almost like bewildered how good they've been this year. I don't get it.
The Yankees are 24 games over 500.
Yeah, that's a joke. They're running away with that division. I mean,
and the division has 3 other playoff teams right now. It's insane.
It does. Yeah, it does.
And the AL is a total joke. Outside of
like 14.
Outside of the division leaders in the American League, there are 2 teams over 500.
That's crazy. It's so hard to like. I mean, I don't mean to be obvious here, but it's just so hard to tell anything in June, man. It really is. I feel like you really don't get a clear picture until the beginning of August.
It's only been 2 months. I mean, yeah, those guys. Nestor Cortez could implode and finish the year with like a 4 ERA.
Yeah, right. Dude. We have Corbin.
The Mets Yankees is just sickening.
It's insufferable for everybody besides New York, besides Mets and Yankees fans.
Yeah.
Like that Yankees being good at the same time. It doesn't happen that often these days.
It hasn't because the Mets have been so bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But look, I'm just hoping for a from a Philly fan perspective, man. I just have to be hopeful because
I think
I have no reason to be. They've let me down countless times over the years. But yeah.
I think with the Philadelphia Phillies, if I'm being honest, and
My
this
word.
may end up just being our final kind of thing today.
Here we go. You ready? Do you want to hear a quote? Pat Riley is going off on the Heat right now. I just thought it's very relevant to this podcast.
Okay. Yeah.
Pat Riley on Kyle Lowry's conditioning. The bottom line with me, and for as far as hoping you can get the most out of players, that you have to be in world-class shape. You just have to be. He's definitely going to have to address that, and it will be addressed.
Pat Riley is what? Is he what's his involvement at the moment with the Heat?
He is the president of the Miami Heat.
Yeah. So he's like, yeah, that's what I thought. I mean,
another quote is that he says, he says Tyler, Duncan, and Strus should forfeit half of their salary to Bam Adebayo in defense of Bam Adebayo.
Wow. That's insane.
That's a pretty insane comment to me.
That isn't it. I've never heard that from a fucking president of the team. That's insane. That is an insane comment. But I mean, good for him, man. I mean, he is. When you make players take ownership, it can be one of the best things to do, I think, because there's just so many of these athletes,
and that's what the Sixers
just sit there and blame other people and blame stupid things. It's like when you actually see guys, and staying with the baseball perspective, like one thing I've seen with the Mets this year is guys are taking ownership of like if they have a bad outing or a bad game, like they're like, yeah, that was on me. Like and they're not. I think this is also different. They're not like, oh yeah, we just swept the Phillies in May. Like we're an elite team. All they're saying is, we'll see if we're good in September, October. Like I think that's one thing that guys like Scherzer and Buck Showalter have really changed about the franchise. They're not celebrating their victories now.
Buck has been so good, dude. He really has been. He's been just.
And it's not even like Buck was a good manager, but he was never like the best.
No, he wasn't.
It's just been a perfect fit for him and for the team.
Buck is the ultimate test of young theory, considering that twice. Did you know this? That twice Buck left the team, and the next year they won the World Series.
The D-backs and Yankees.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. So hopefully
that Buck has been great for the New York Mets. But yeah, real quick, I mean, that Pat Riley thing is interesting. But with the Phillies, I think that their expectations are a little different than the Mets. I think the Mets, the way they went out and spent this offseason, I think we're not World Series or bust per se, but like the expectations are pretty up there with the World Series. Whereas the Phillies, I think, this is the first year they really went out and spent I think that this team just needs to make the playoffs and then build from there
Absolutely.
and get some
Yeah.
experience. I think that it's not fair to them to expect the World Series. I think the Mets, I was never coming in saying World Series or bust. Just the way they performed at this point, it's kind of like I wouldn't really be satisfied if they just make the playoffs and go out first round. Like I think that their team is just built for. I think they've got a really good shot this year. I think that they definitely got some holes they need to address, but starting pitching, man, it wins things. And I think that what I've seen that they've been 18 over with DeGrom and Scherzer. I think they 8 starts, 7 starts, and DeGrom made
Yeah.
0. I mean,
I just think the most frustrating thing about watching the Phillies for sure is just like you're watching an all-time great waste his prime. At the end of the day, like you're watching like the best hitter, like the guy, like I'm watching this guy on a night in, night out basis. I can't believe how good he is. And then I can't believe that we have this dude on our team and we still suck.
it's like the Angels. It's very perplexing.
We also have him on such an insanely good contract. I can't believe people were saying, "Oh, what a bad contract" at the time. Like his AV is like 25 million. It's awesome. It's just like it sucks. Like it sucks that you're watching this guy with his prime. But I'm hoping, like, I'm just glad. I'm surprised that we actually did something. I really thought we were just going to be complacent and wait till the end of the year. But at the end of the day, like this guy had like 4 months left on his contract. Like, get him the F out of town. He sucked. He didn't want to be here. He was apathetic. He didn't care when we lost. Get him out of town. Like, he sucked. The players hated him.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing with the Phillies is the one thing I would say is I think their roster construction, like, they went all out, and like Schwarber and Castellanos are great players, and like they're kind of some of them, they're kind of starting to finally come around. But like, I think that this team, that maybe signing one of those guys and then putting a little more into the bullpen of the rotation would have been a better use, just because I think the Phillies pitching right now is just a mess.
I think you made a good point in that, like, it's the first season we've come out and said, like, to really build a contender, bro, like, you've got to
It takes 2 years, yes.
Yeah, you got to spend it. And this was about getting the pieces around Bryce because it's what Bryce wanted. And, like, at the end of the day, you can't make Bryce unhappy. You can't have him. You cannot have him wanting to leave. People will stop going to the games if he leaves. I'm not kidding. They'll have an empty stadium if he leaves. Like, it's just disgraceful because, like, it's a losing franchise. We made the playoffs 4 times this century. It sucks. Like, we had one all-time.
There's no way that's true. In the last century, since 2000.
No, in the 21st century, I should say. The 21st century, I should say. 4 times in 21 years.
4 times in 100 years.
No, not 4 times in 100. I don't know if I can remember the team that made the playoffs 4 times in 100 years. That's the worst franchise in sports history with us. Yeah, look, we've only won 2 World Series and we've been around since the 1880s. Although, to be fair, like we didn't technically
it was the Philadelphia Athletics, right?
No, they're 2 separate. They were 2 separate teams.
So you guys were what? The
Phillies. Always been the Phillies.
Since the 1880s? Really?
Yeah, because then the Philadelphia Athletics were a different team.
Okay. And then they moved to Oakland. Okay.
Yeah, and the craziest part was the Athletics were the main team in Philly, much like the Yankees are the main team. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, the Yankees. That's
no.
Like, not right now, but the Yankees have been the main team, you could say. I mean, they're just such a dynasty. They're the greatest dynasty in sports at the end of the day. 27 World Series.
Yeah, but I think, funny enough, like the Phillies didn't really have any money for like 40 years, so they were kind of just like subsided by the A's. And like that's why we didn't really win anything because we didn't have any money to buy players, which is how it used to work back in the day.
But yeah, I mean, you kind of touched on it. Like, I think that, and we'll see if Middleton does it. But like last year, the Mets went out. They signed Lindor. They signed some of these guys like James McCann. Like they signed. They kind of said the pieces. They have a lot of guys on big deals, and it's like, if you really want to win, like you have to do whatever it takes to win. And like that's what I've seen with Cohen. Like Cohen obviously went out and signed Scherzer, Marte, Canna, Escobar, all these guys, and then. This year he cut Robinson Cano. He, ate the money, which obviously I don't think many owners in the MLB would. But he said, Robbie Cano. I mean, Robbie Cano is pure awful. Obviously, the Padres just cut him. I mean, that guy is as washed as I've ever seen an MLB player. But then they send down Dom Smith. Like, if you're not performing, you're not going to play. And I think that's one thing about the Mets that I've really liked this year, and I think is a culture change. Like, they're not worried about money. They want to put the best 26 players on the field, best 20, how many ever guys it is. And they're not worried about, eating contract. And that's awesome. I think the Phillies, like I said, I mean, I think making the playoffs would be a huge success. But John Middleton needs to put a little more money into the team, because I think if he committed like 30 more million into their team, just to the pitching, I mean, they could be a serious contender. I do think the defense has to upgrade too, though. I don't think that the Philly
I agree.
defense
I
is going
think
to win a World Series.
it sucks because like although Bryce isn't obviously a great right
Yeah,
fielder, like
Bryce being out
Bryce
is
being out is
horrible
just
because that means Schwarber. It's
no,
more.
yeah,
It's not
Schwarber and
like
Castellanos might have
Bryce.
to play like that's not how
That
you like.
Bryce has to. It's not even that you're missing Bryce's defense. It's that you're now getting Schwarber and
Yeah,
Castellanos'
exactly. Like with
defense.
Bryce, like you at least have like an average outfield defense, I would say, with Bryce
Yeah,
out there. But like Jesus Christ, dude, with
Kyle
Schwarber and
Schwarber.
Castellanos both, it's not great. But like I'm not a big like I'm a pretty big Kyle Schwarber defender. Like I get he wasn't hitting great at the end of the year, but like
He hits bombs, bro. He'll hit
like
close to 40 home
he's getting
runs.
like
Yeah.
that's what I saw. That's what I was saying to somebody earlier. Like he's getting paid. Like he's doing what he's getting paid to do at the end of the day.
He
It's like
was never like last year. I think he had like 250. Like he was never gonna do that again.
no, yeah. He hits home runs. He hits home
Yeah.
runs.
And he's
Yeah.
on what, like a $20 million contract? Like it's
Yeah,
not
no, it's nothing. Yeah, it's nothing. No, less than that actually. He's on 580.
478, right?
I thought he was on he's definitely on 5 here.
No, Nick's on 5. Nick's 500. Schwarber's 478.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
almost
right.
100% confident.
No, I know Castellanos is on 5. No, you're right. It was 4 years. I'm an idiot.
To almost 20.
Castellanos,
like
I know
19.
Castellanos is 5 years. I probably just thought they were both 5 years because I knew Castellanos' number. But yeah, man, I mean, this is just, I mean, from a Phillies fan, like from a Phillies fan perspective, like you would understand, like if you would follow the team a little more closely, like it's just that like McPhail really tanked the crap out of this team. Like this guy ran the team for years. We think about it. We were awful for like 6 straight, like awful before we at least started being mediocre. We were awful for 6 straight years. And who do we have to show for it? Reese Hoskins? Come on, man.
Yeah, they botched
No,
the draft, man. The drafts there's just no young
we have
talent.
2 guys.
No
We have 2
homegrown.
guys. They have 2 guys coming through now who they hope can be the saviors, which is Painter and Abel. And this Painter guy is supposed to be a demon. This Painter guy.
Where is he ranked?
He is about to break into the top 100 apparently because he broke like the low A record for strikeouts in like a really low amount of time. He went to Florida, I believe.
Nice.
Andrew Painter.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh wow, he's your number 1 guy right now.
Yeah.
So the Phils not have a top 100 prospect like right now.
In the next, what's it called? This guy Logan
Update.
O'Hoppe.
Yeah, but right now they don't. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh no, they do. Well, I guess.
And the next.
Painter's ranked 72 right now on MLB.com.
Oh, yeah. All right.
And then Mick Abel's 74.
And then Logan O'Hoppe is supposed to break into the next one. So MLB Network says.
Oh, did they just update? They might have just upgraded this recently. Because now Alex Ramirez of the Mets is number 100, and he wasn't on there. So maybe they just updated it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, this dude, this dude in 44 career minor league innings has 81 strikeouts. Andrew Painter.
Jesus. That's pretty impressive. It's as good as it gets. All right. Well, we've talked a lot in this episode. We kind of rambled, but I mean, it was fun conversation at the end of the day, a fun time. So with that being said, though, that will do it for this week's episode of Outside the Arena. If you are new here, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on the video. Check us out on Instagram at Outside the Arena Podcast. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, and Spotify at Outside the Arena. And yeah, we'll be back next week talking NBA Finals. I do want to talk about the NFL schedule, so maybe we'll fit that in next week as well. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you all next week.